We're going to now bring on Tim Cook, who is fantastic to come the second year, and he's all ready to go, and he's all relaxed and ready to go.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Tim Cook.
Tim Cook. So one thing we said before we start, we're not going to say we love Apple, we love Apple, we love Apple.
Yeah, we're not going to beat you up and then say
Why not?
we love you.
Why not?
Because Jon Stewart had plenty of material last week.
You were really kind to come here and kind of do your debut at a tech conference with us last year. And I think we had a good conversation. A lot has happened between last year and this year. And I have to ask you, you know, I'm not going to list a million things, but you know, there's been your competition in the phone business. Samsung seems to have grown stronger. Android, you know, they just had their conference. They talked about how they actually claimed a number in their app store that's for the first time higher than yours. You're being beaten up by various governments over various things, and I think worst of all, there's a sense your stock is down. And there's a sense, down significantly, and there's a sense that, I'll tell you something, I honestly don't even know the price of his stock, but whatever. There's a sense that you may have lost your cool, that somebody else has got the cool, that Samsung has got the cool.
Or we can start on taxes.
But here's my first question, is Apple in trouble?
Is Apple in trouble? Absolutely not. Let's sort of back up from it all and kind of zoom out, and I'll at least give you my perspective on it. If you look at the company, and you know, we're a product company, so we think about products. iPhone, the first half of this year, which is, we start our year in October,
right.
So it's October to March. iPhone, we sold 85 million iPhones. Well, this is incredible. iPad, 42 million. And iPad, of course, is growing very, very significantly. More important than the numbers, customers love them. The customer sat ratings on these products are off the charts. They're unprecedented. The usage of these products is unbelievable. I don't know if you saw the latest net app numbers, but this is something I follow fairly closely because, you know, they look at usage instead of just unit share. The usage worldwide, smartphones and tablets from web traffic, 59% was from iOS, worldwide.
And your actual share of units is much less.
Our share is much less than that. I'm not sure exactly what it is because other people don't report like we do. But it's clearly not 59%, you know, or anywhere near that. And so I look at that and say, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. We're coming off of closing out the December of last year with an unprecedented number of new products, with iPhone 5, with iPad mini, with the 4th generation iPad, with the best Mac we've ever done with the MacBook Pro, the 13-inch with Retina. We had an all-new iMac, and we did, to top it off, we did a new iPod Nano and an iPod Touch.
But true. I like your word of unprecedented.
And we redid all of iTunes. We did iTunes all over again.
I understand your word of unprecedented. Nice word, by the way. But there still is a sense. I mean, there has been a sense Wall Street is reflective of this, whether it's fair or not. That's a precipitous, unprecedented downfall too of the stock. So how do you look at that when you're seeing that happen in a perceptual way, and then this time you have competent rivals in a lot of ways. You have a lot of really tough rivals compared to before.
You know, from my point of view, over my tenure at Apple, I mean my long tenure, not as CEO, but we've always had competent rivals. You know, we fought against Microsoft, still fight against Microsoft in the, particularly in the PC space. We fought against hardware companies that were viewed at the time to be incredible hardware companies like Dell. Now, in the long arc of time, people changed their mind on companies, but we've always suited up and fought. And so I'm not sure, I don't really see that different today than I did 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Well, maybe 15 years ago, we were starting at such a low place because we were worried about going out of business. That was different. But Apple has always had competition to focus on. But our North Star is always on making the best products. And so we always come back to that. We want to do the best phone, the best tablet, the best PC, the best MP3 player. And I think we're doing that, and more important than me thinking of it, that's the feedback that we get from our customers.
So the outside perception doesn't bother,
well,
because it's there, it's clearly there, and you hear it more and more. People are worried for Apple that they have that. It exists, and it's not false,
Yeah.
I don't think.
No, if you look at the stock, which is a lot of what people focus on, the stock price has been frustrating. It's been frustrating for investors and all of us. This too is not unprecedented. I mean, I guess the beauty of being around for a while in this is that you see many cycles. You guys have seen many cycles because you guys have been around as long as I have. You know, I think back to the end of 2007, Apple's stock price was 200. By early 2009, do you know what it was?
Please tell me.
I remember.
You don't own Apple stock.
It was like 70, 75. And if you go back a few years earlier than that, you would see another kind of move down. And of course, there was some really bad times back in 98 and 2001. So I think what we have to do is focus on products. We making the best products. And if we do that right, if we make great products that enrich people's lives, then the other things will happen.
Sorry, let's talk about products for a minute.
Yeah.
I've covered Apple a long time, and I think Apple is generally perceived, and with good historical reason, as a company capable of changing the game. Company capable, and you've done it, you know, 5 or 6 times, however you want to define it. You've changed the game, and it's been a while. Even if I accept that all those products you just listed are excellent products, I would not call any of them like the iPad Mini is was a good move, and I use one and I like it, but it's not a game-changing product the way the iPad was. It's not a game-changing product the way the iPhone was.
It wasn't a new category.
Right.
Many people now are defining innovation equals new category.
All right, I'm not trying to do a word play here, but I mean, people have a certain standard for you. In a way, you're like a movie studio. People expect you to do hits that enthrall the audience. It's been a while. So when is the next one coming? Are you still that company that's going to do that?
Yes, we're still the company that's going to do that. We have some incredible plans that we've been working on for a while. We have incredible ideas, the same culture and largely the same people that brought you the iPhone, that brought you the iPad, many that brought the iPod, and some that even brought the Mac are still there. The culture is all still there, and many of the people are there. And yeah, I think we have several more several more game changers in us.
So why don't we go through them? Okay? Let's talk about television. You talked last year here about television. Seemed very bullish on it. Not so much anymore? Where is the television project right now?
Well, we're still playing in TV through Apple TV. And Apple TV, I don't remember where we were last year, but let me tell you, give you a little bit of an update here. For several years, we were selling a few 100,000 and so forth. We've now sold over 13 million. And about half of those in the last year. And so that business has found many, many more customers that love the Apple TV experience. And I think has been both great for customers, but also very good from a learning point of view for Apple. You know, I think many of us would agree that there's lots of things about the TV experience that can be better. We answered some of those, clearly not all of those, with Apple TV, and we're going to continue to make that better.
But Steve Jobs here on the stage talked about wanting to change it dramatically.
Yeah.
And so did you in a lot of ways. I mean, the idea of dramatic change that is not delivering it in the same way that it's sort of been delivered. That Apple TV is a very nice product, but it's still the same thing that other people do. And one of the things, you know, one of the issues is the relationship between you and Hollywood. Some people in Hollywood, I know, are feeling more confident against Apple than ever before, and maybe it's just because that's their cycle of, you know, greed and mania that goes on continually in Hollywood. But they do feel more confident that we've got you now. We have lots of places to sell our.
So are they holding up your TV project, or is there something technical holding it up, or is it on schedule, or what?
You know, I don't want to go into detail, as you might have guessed, but it continues to be an area of great interest to us. And I do think that the Apple TV product, the relationships that build around it, and the work that we've done technically around it provide a lot more knowledge than we would have had without that product. And frankly, the popularity of it has become much larger than we would have thought. And you know, we're doing that we're not marketing it and these sorts of things that you would normally do and that we do for our other products. And so it's encouraging. It's still, when you look at the TV experience, it's not an experience that I think very many people love. It's not an experience that you would say has been brought up to date for this decade. It's still an experience that's too much like it was 10 years ago, in many cases 20 years ago, and in some cases even
So what are you doing
longer.
about
Yeah,
it?
so the question is, where's
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to
where's
answer
my TV
those.
that solves all those problems?
Well, what would you like to see in broad terms without showing us the actual device? I mean, what would a TV experience? That it wraps around you and touches you? I don't know, what? You can take that idea and go with it.
Yeah. With no royalty.
No, not at all. It's freebie.
Yeah. I don't want to go any further on this because I don't want to give anybody else any ideas they don't already have.
Is there a grand vision of it? Like, how would TV change that it's different now?
There is a very grand vision of it.
So you have an Apple take on TV, different from current Apple TV. It's underway. You have not abandoned it. It's underway somewhere.
I have nothing to announce.
Right. I get that, but
it's an area of incredible interest to us.
Is it so interesting that you'll do something about it this year?
That's a good one.
I tell you what.
Or is it not that
I'll
interesting?
make you a deal.
Are you going to make me a deal? Okay.
You'll be the first person.
Oh, yeah,
I
thanks.
tell.
That doesn't take
I'm sure that makes them all happy.
All right.
But okay, I'll take it.
So let's move to wearables then,
Yeah.
which you can do with the television, by the way, speaking of which. But wearables, let's talk about wearables. Google Glass, what's your take on it?
I think I think there's some positive points in the product. I think it's probably more likely to appeal to certain vertical markets. I think the likelihood that it has a broad range appeal, that's tough to see. But I think sort of bringing up the question a little bit, I think wearables is incredibly interesting. And I think it could be a profound area for technology.
So, okay, so you're really interested in TV, and you're incredibly interested in wearables.
Profoundly.
Profoundly.
Luckily, I can be interested in more than one thing at a time.
I know, it's great. It's awesome. So,
including taxes.
yeah, well, we could talk about,
We'll get to that.
We'll talk about taxes.
I was sure.
But,
We got 44 minutes. Fantastic.
because apparently you can even do taxes on your products, right? You can compute them. But is wearables an area which you think is, when you look at the industry landscape, if we're in the post-PC era, which we're kind of on the hook of having said that, so we believe that,
and we really believe that.
And you really believe that. So,
big way.
is part of the post-PC era wearables that go beyond just sort of fitness devices that we have now and, sort of geeky things?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I wear this. It's a fuel band. I think Nike did a great job with this. It's for a specific area. It's integrated well with iOS. There are lots of gadgets, wearables in this space now. You've probably tried as many as I have, maybe even more. I would say that the ones that are doing more than one thing, that there's nothing, this does primarily one thing. There's the ones that do more than one, there's nothing great out there that I've seen. There's nothing that's going to convince a kid who has never worn glasses or a band or a watch or whatever to wear one yet, or at least I haven't seen it. So I think there's lots of things to solve in this space, but it's an area where it's ripe for exploration. It's ripe for us all getting excited about. I think there will be tons of companies playing in this.
And will Apple be one of them?
I don't want to answer that one, but I see it as something, as another very key branch of the tree. You think about the post-PC era, and we really started talking about this several years ago. I think the iPhone pushed us toward that fast, and then the tablet accelerated it, if anything. And so I think wearables could be another branch on this. And so I think that this is something this group, I think, will be very engaged in over the...
So where are you going to wear it?
We're at D20.
Right, D20, yeah.
Will you come to D20? And
I will.
and will you announce
my hair will
products?
look like yours.
It will, that's fine.
Let me ask you, wearables? Where are you interested? In the glasses, all over, or clothing, or what's the area?
Health related? I mean, what?
I'm interested in a great product. And I think in terms of glasses, I wear glasses because I have to. Mm-hmm. I can't see without them.
Either.
So I kind of have that problem. I don't know a lot of people that wear them that don't have to. People that do wear them generally want them to be light. They want them to be unobtrusive. They probably want them to reflect their fashion, their style and so forth. And so I think from a mainstream point of view, this is difficult. It's difficult to see.
But the wrist is not, or some other?
I think the wrist is interesting. I'm wearing this on my wrist. It's somewhat natural. But as I said before, I think for something to work here, you first have to convince people it's so incredible that they want to wear it, because you two guys are wearing watches. Mm-hmm. If we had a room full of 10 to 20-year-olds, and we said, everybody stand up that has a watch on.
That just tells time, just a time.
I'm not sure anybody would stand up.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I mean, you look at what kids are wearing.
So what company?
Their watch is this.
All right, so what company could put something on their wrist that they'd want to wear?
I don't know.
Can you think of any?
I don't know. And I don't think it has to be just that. I think there are other wearable ideas that are
different sensor.
Could be interesting. Yeah, the whole sensor field is going to explode. It's already exploding. It's a little kind of all over the place right now, but with the arc of time, it will become clearer, I think.
We are going to ask about taxes.
Yeah. Okay. I know a few things about them now.
Yeah, apparently. But I wanted to ask about something you might even like to talk about less, which is Android. Your company started the modern smartphone movement, and I would say the one that really was the true smartphone. I mean, there were some predecessor products that were innovative, but now you've seen Android really swamp you in a big way in terms of units and number of carriers and number of, just usage. Well, you just said it isn't true about usage, but clearly there are all these devices out there and people are using them for something. Maybe they're not going on the web as much as your devices. How do you feel? And this has happened pretty fast. I mean, they came out in 2008. You still were leading, and then it just seems like in the last maybe 18 months, this gap has opened up.
Well, for us.
Do you look at that every day, every month?
Do I look at it? Of course. I don't have my head stuck in the sand. But for us, winning has never been about making the most. That's never been the cornerstone of Apple. I mean, arguably, we make the best PC. We don't make the most. We make the best music player. We wound up making the most. We didn't initially. We make the best tablet. We're making the most there today. We make the best phone. We're not making the most phones. So the way that I look at this is that there's several things that to assess the health or how you're doing, that just like you would with your body, you would take more than one measurement. I think you look at usage. What are customers doing? Well, I just quoted the 59%, but I mean, you don't have to take that one. You can look at tablet web share in North America. Right now, almost every study I look at, iPad is in the 80s. Last Black Friday, IBM did a special study on e-commerce in the United States. It's very, very geared toward the US. And they looked at every mobile device and what was bought off of those. I don't know if you saw this or not, but it was shocking what it said. It said that on iPad, and this is before iPad mini, we just started shipping iPad mini in November, so there are very few out there at the time the study was done. What the study said was that there were twice as many e-commerce transactions on iPad than all Android devices combined. Not all Android tablets, all Android tablets plus phones. I mean, it's incredible.
Okay.
All right.
It's actually.
You don't have to clap.
It's incredible. Just think about that for a minute.
Okay.
iPhone was also more than all Android devices.
This is in the
combined.
U.S.
This is in the U.S.
Which is if not your strongest, one of your stronger markets.
It is, but certainly what I'm pointing out to you is the market share isn't twice as much as all of these combined. And so what the numbers suggest over and over again are that people are using our products more. And that's what we're all about. We want to enrich people's lives. If they're not using the products, we're probably not doing that.
So what's your theory? Is it your theory that people are buying 2 or 3 times as many Android products as iOS products, but they're putting them in a drawer, or they're just texting on them, or just
I
what?
think that...
No, that's really a serious question. I mean,
No.
There must be something going on.
I took it as one. What do I think? I think globally, I think there's probably a lot of phones that are called smartphones that you and I and Kara might get together, and if we were labeling what they are, we might say, well, that's a feature phone. And that the user uses it like the old feature phones that we
some of these are Android in your...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and so I think that's probably part of it. I think that you've got some devices in tablets that were probably bought and the experience isn't great and they're not used very much. Where I look at my own personal use of iPad, and it's a significant percentage of my computing work now. I don't know how yours would be, but it's significant. It's changed the game. And I don't hear that from people that have Android tablets.
So you're relying on the usage idea that people, it doesn't matter how many we sell, people are using them more than anybody else.
Not solely usage. So I've just quoted usage, I've quoted commerce, and the next one is customer sat. I mean, it's sort of the report card. No matter what business you're in, ultimately the customer is the judge. And so you look to see, how are we doing there? Well, iPad has the highest customer sat of any tablet. iPhone has the highest customer sat of any phone, and has won now J.D. Power's 9 times in a row. And so that's what we're about. Not winning awards. We're about enriching customers' lives and making great products.
I hear you when you say
not making the most.
But in terms of updating them and making them, because one of these groups you're talking about young people who don't use this.
Yeah.
What's the demographic on that? Are you worried about a demographic that is older, perhaps not, that buys things, that uses these kind of things for devices? Or are you thinking about having a more dramatic redesign of what you're doing to liven it up? Because it still looks the same as it did, and I think a lot of people are starting to complain. I know I look at it and say, oh, it looks exactly the same.
She's trying to say, what have you done for us lately? When is the next big change? I asked you about new game-changing devices, but let's talk about your 2 big things, the iPad and the iPhone. When's the next big, are you going to change
definitely,
that game?
I can say I use it a lot more than I use my Android phones, but I don't love it as much, for sure. I'm not Claire McCaskill all over you. So, I mean, you know what I mean? I don't love it as much, and and if I don't love it as much, it's an interesting, and I watch my kids use it.
As much as?
As I used to, I guess.
As you used to, yeah.
So you hit on a couple things. Do I worry about the demographics? No. Our customers are all ages, and I love that. We want customers of all ages. We try to appeal to everyone. What's new, what's coming, what's next, when is it coming? As you know, I'm not going to answer those, but what I can say is, we have our developer conference in less than 2 weeks. And we're going to be rolling out the future of iOS and OS X, and we're all super excited to do that. We're super excited, and I think we've got a lot of developers coming in. We owe the world to these developers. They've worked like crazy, and we have a fantastic, not just quantity of apps, but we have an incredible quality of apps. The iPad, we've got 350,000 apps that have been optimized for it. I think if you compare that to others, it's in the hundreds. And so I think we've got a substantial lead in that area, and I think the customer sat kind of data.
So what will be?
Talk
to us a little about the new iOS. I'm trying.
I think I'll wait and let you see it.
Really? I don't like waiting. I'm very impatient.
You know, surprise is fun. Remember what it was like Christmas Day when you walked.
No, we open our presents on Christmas Eve, so don't go there.
Remember what it was like Christmas Eve.
And I'm Jewish.
But yes, he's.
So I don't remember that at all.
So, but talk about. But when you say when you said you're going to do an update, sorry I missed the exact phrasing. But is it a dramatic update of the iOS or one of those small? little
I'll let you be the judge.
iTunes again.
But this is the one that Johnny Ive has been working on, right?
Yes, Johnny is really key.
And Johnny has been doing hardware, not software, traditionally, right? In his previous role.
What we did last fall was change things up a bit.
Yes.
And
we heard about it.
We
wrote about it.
We did this to really amp up collaboration. Because for us, and I think this is particularly true in the post-PC era, is that the key for having a great killer product is to have incredible hardware, incredible software, and incredible services, and combine those in such a way that you can't tell what's what anymore. It becomes an elegant consumer experience, and the real magic occurs at the intersection of those.
But hasn't that always sort of been what Apple was about?
It has always been what Apple was about. And so what this did was just amp it up even more. No, it wasn't a matter of not having it and going to it. And, you know, we recognized that Johnny had contributed significantly to the look and feel of Apple over many, many years, and could do that for our software as well. And I think it's absolutely incredible.
So talk a little bit, you mentioned sort of changes of collaboration. The press release at the time said collaboration quite a bit when Scott left. Can we talk a little about your leadership style in that way? Now, you removed someone who was rather significant at Apple for many, many years under Steve, who had a lot of power there.
Scott Forstall.
Can you talk about what happened there from your perspective? Was he not collaborative or?
No, I don't want to talk about. I don't want to talk about anybody in particular, other than people that are there.
So this group is collaborative.
The whole concept was to tighten the groups even more, so we could spend more time on finding the magic at the intersections. And I think, and now we're 7 months later, give or take, something like that. I think it's been an incredibly great change. Craig is running both iOS and OS X. This has been fantastic. Eddie is focused on services. And so these changes have been really great, really, really great.
How do you look at yourself as a leader? What kind of leader are you? Because you did move in there and change the system that Steve had in place.
Yeah, I've never viewed a system or a structure to be fixed. And by the way, he didn't either. And so I didn't look at it like your question sort of paints.
My nasty, suspectful question, I know.
No, it's not that. It's just that that's not how I looked at it. I always ask myself, what's in Apple's best interest? And that's always what I'm interested in doing.
Well, what kind of leader are you? How would you describe yourself as a leader?
I'd let other people describe me
How would
instead
you
of letting me describe
yourself?
myself, because I never like to talk about myself.
I would say I'm a bossy pain in the ass. How would you describe yourself?
I'd never
And it
describe
works.
you that way.
You
I
may.
would, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd never describe you that way. No, I'll leave that to others. I'm sure somebody will get a kick out of describing that in their next article or something.
No, I don't. No one's ever said it to me. But what is your ethos from? For your everyone has their management style. How do you differ from Steve? Would you say how long have you been a CEO?
For coming up on 2 years.
So how are you different?
How am I different than Steve? In probably a ton of ways, but the most important things are the same. Because the most important thing at Apple are about what are we there for? We're there to make great products. Really keeping the culture of Apple the same, fighting the things that try to change it, ridding the place of those. And so those to me are the most important, and that hasn't changed a bit.
Can I ask a question about product strategy? So when you guys did the iPod, and I remember one year Steve was being interviewed up here, and the iPod was hugely successful, and he made some wisecrack about how it's good to have finally a product that's above 5% share. He was very happy about that. But one of the things you did was to create a range of iPods at different prices.
Yeah.
Not like last year's model, but a range of new things that, each to hit a different price point and a different use case for a different kind of audience. And at one famous moment, which you probably were involved in, because, with the whole executive team there, you guys killed off the iPod Mini, which was the best-selling MP3 player in the world. You just killed it.
Yeah.
Not when it failed, when it was at the top of its game and you brought in the Nano and so forth. But you wound up with this whole range of things. And you haven't done that with the iPhone or the iPad. You do have the Mini, but the iPhone in particular, you've had this sense of, well, we're going to cover price points. I'm going to save you the trouble of saying this, because they all know it. We're going to cover the price points by having this year's be the $200 subsidized one, and last year's be the $99 subsidized ones, and the year before that, and they can all run the current iOS. I want to make that clear. There may be some features that the oldest one can't do, but they all run the current iOS, and the one from the 2 years before is 0, and that's as much as you've done to vary it. You've never come out with like 2 different new iPhones for different either price points or demographics or regions or anything. Why not? It worked on iPod. Why doesn't it work on iPhone?
Well, we haven't so far. That doesn't shut off the future. So let me answer the question on why haven't we so far. It takes a lot of work, a lot of really detailed work to do a phone right when you manage the hardware, the software, and the services around it. And we've chosen to put our energy in getting those right, and have made the choices in order to do that. And so we haven't become defocused and working multiple lines. The other part of that is if you take your example on iPod, which I think is a good one, think about what the evolution of iPod over time. At one point we brought in a shuffle. Well, the shuffle didn't have the same functionality as other products. It was a really cool product. It played a different role, and it was great for some customers, but it was strikingly different than the Nano or the Mini when it was announced, or of course the product that we now call the Classic. And the Nano or the Mini played a different role than the Classic did. If you remember when we brought out the Mini, people were saying, well, nobody's going to buy this. It's priced too high, and it doesn't store enough songs, because people got used to the huge amount of storage that was in Classic. And then the Mini proved that no, people in fact really want something lighter, thinner, smaller. And today we wouldn't describe Mini in those terms, because it was pretty big compared to the Nano that we ship today, but that's how we thought of it at the time. And so my only point is, these products all served a different person, a different type. They serve different needs. And so on the phone, that is the question, is are we now at a point to serve enough people that we need to do that?
So let me help you.
Yeah.
There seem to be people that like phones with a lot bigger screens than your phone, than even your expanded one that you just brought out. I don't know the exact numbers, but there seem to be people that like those. And then there also seem to be people that like kind of things that are between phones and tablets, phablets, we call them on All Things D, that where there's a stylus. I know Steve used to say, styluses were a bad thing, but in my experience with Steve, he would say things were bad things or impossible to make, and then he would go do them. So does a large screen or a stylus, are those different enough things to
I think the large
give you a
screen
sense
has
that
kind
there
of
are other things to do?
At a macro level, it might, but a large screen today comes with a lot of trade-offs. When you look at, people do look at the size, customers clearly are looking at size, but they also look at things like, do the photos show the proper color, the white balance, reflectivity, battery life, brightness, the longevity of the display. And so there's a whole bunch of things that are very important to the display. And what our customers want is for us to weigh those and come out with a decision. And at this point, we felt that the Retina display that we're shipping is overwhelmingly the best. But that's why those trade-offs exist. So in a hypothetical world where the trade-offs didn't exist, you could see that being one of the things that differentiates.
So let's move to taxes.
Yeah.
Let's move to taxes, sorry.
Thank you for taking
No
taxes.
problem. I'll take taxes. Fantastic appearance, weird, in front of Congress. Talk a little bit about that, and what do you, I'm not really clear what happened there. It's not clear.
Yeah, feel free to attack Congress here, because no one will see this.
Right.
Nobody would see it.
Yeah.
Here's how I felt on this is the subcommittee was coming to certain conclusions, and we felt strongly that we looked at those very differently. And so I thought it was very important to go tell our story and to view that as an opportunity instead of a pain in the ass, and view it as an opportunity to try to act as a catalyst to get people to focus on what we felt the issues really were. And instead of just going and saying, we think this is screwed up and that's screwed up and the other is screwed up, we came in with a proposal and said, this is what we think should be done. We think we're not in here asking for tax breaks. We think we should do comprehensive reform, but it should be revenue neutral. And
when you if I might stop you, when you say that, you mean get rid of loopholes that are.
I don't think of it as a loophole. People call.
You use the word tax expenditures.
Tax expenditures, which some people use loosely called deductions, right?
Right.
And so, but I think for multinationals, the right approach would be simplicity. I mean, it's how we approach everything. It's how we approach products and most everything we do, is to just gut the code. It's 7,500 pages long. None of us could read it and make sense of it. Apple's tax return is 2 feet high. I mean, this is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I would suggest we gut it, throw away all the tax expenditures, lower the rate, and then set a reasonable tax to bring offshore profits back to the U.S. I think that would be great for the U.S. I think it would be great for the U.S. because it
all right,
thanks.
Rand Paul. Okay.
it helps the U.S. economy. It grows the economy.
Really, fine. We need to go on with the interview.
And so that's why. And so I thought it was important to both say what we're not. We don't use tax gimmicks.
Well, you take advantage of the tax as it stands, correct?
I wouldn't use the word take advantage.
What word would you use?
We pay,
What word would you use?
30.
For some of the financial machinations are because of the tax system.
To average citizens, these look like gimmicks. I understand what you mean, that you're being sincere.
No, I'm very sincere on this.
But the code has, as you pointed out, it's very long, it's convoluted, it's difficult to understand, but that's partly because the lobbyists for companies, possibly, I don't know, including Apple, have lobbied over the years for various things.
Yes, and it's
that make this very complicated. And in some of those things allow companies, most of them, allow companies to pay less than what's on the sort of, front of the tax bill. This is the corporate tax rate.
It's a Band-Aid and paperclip kind of thing. And over the years, Congress has kept Band-Aiding it.
At the urging of corporate lobbyists.
No doubt. Instead of sort of saying it's time to trash it and go back to something simple and restart. We paid 30.5%. Our effective rate in the U.S. is 30.5. I don't know where everybody else is. There's not a ranking of this sort of thing. But my guess is it's one of the highest effective rates. And we pay $6 billion, and that is the highest in the U.S. We pay more taxes than anybody. And so we're not in there saying we should pay less. In fact, I said, I think if you implement what we're suggesting, we may wind up paying a little more. But what we would get for that is we would have unlimited ability to pull our capital back offshore. And I think that would be great for the United States.
And what's this whole Irish thing?
Yeah.
The Irish thing.
I want you to actually explain in simple terms what you did there. For what you had to do there, either moving the patents in. Could you walk everybody through what you did there?
What we did in Ireland?
Right.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let me start by saying, let me try to answer Walt's question. I've seen something in the press that says that some people think that we have a deal with the Irish, a special deal with the Irish government to pay a 2% flat tax rate. We have no special deal with the Irish government that gives us a 2% flat tax rate. So let me just set that aside. Now, what did we do? I believe, based on the hearing, that simplistically, the thing that's being debated, there's a lot of terminology, et cetera, but without going through that, the basic thing that's being debated is for a company like Apple or any other company that sells things across the world and develops them in the United States, which is what we do. Almost all of our development is in the United States. Some people believe that all of the profits all around the world should accrue to the U.S. and be taxed in the U.S. What Apple did back in 1980, which is similar to what every multinational company that I know of does, is back when, right after Steve formed the company, I think it was the year it went public, there was a deal between the U.S. company and the Irish company. The Irish company invested money in R&D.
The Irish company is owned by you, though.
It was owned by Apple, but this meets the IRS standards and everything, so it's nothing nefarious by any means. I mean, you can read it in the rule book. And so you basically have two entities contributing money to develop product, and then each of those sell products within their regions. And they either accrue the losses, if there are losses associated with that, or they accrue the rewards, if there's rewards. Well, over that period of time, I mean, you guys know Apple, there were periods of time where both people were losing tons of money, and now there are times when both are making tons of money. And so there are some people that look at that and say, there's no issue with that, including the IRS. There's no issue with that. There's others that say, hey, it was developed in the U.S., And so all of the profits need to accrue to the U.S.
Yeah, you print it right on the back. So
The problem with that, guys, is that if everything developed in the U.S. is going to be taxed here on worldwide profits, I worry about where development will be. Because we're in the fortunate position that we don't have to always make an economic decision in what we do. But companies that just make an economic decision, I'm very worried that a policy that suggests that if development isn't done here, or if it is done here, it's taxed, all taxed here, this would not be good for jobs in the U.S. And so one of the things I wanted to do last week was make certain that people are thinking through the logical next steps of such a move.
And were you surprised that that they asked you a bunch of questions that you would expect a committee investigating stuff to ask, and then they started a love fest? I mean, what was that?
I didn't.
Did you give them all free stuff, or what happened?
No, I didn't feel it was a love fest. I know that was sort of came out in the media, but sitting in the.
She said, "I love you." No, I really love you.
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean came out in the media? It was like,
But no.
several
what I'm saying
of them
is
said it, not just one.
sitting in a witness chair, you don't necessarily have that feeling. It's a little different feeling when you're sitting there. But I think it was great to be a part of the process, great to tell our story. I hope that it winds up helping the reform question, but only time will tell.
Can I broaden this a little?
Sure.
You seem to be, I remember when you were the struggling company, and even after you kind of were able to avoid being on the door of bankruptcy, you still had small share, and you didn't get a lot of attention from governments. Now you get a lot of attention from governments, not just this tax thing, but safety, environment, whatever. Antitrust, whether it's the U.S. government or it's the e-book case is a good example, or I guess the EU is. I read, I think on our site today, or in the Wall Street Journal, that you're being investigated for your relationships with carriers in the EU. You seem to be, lots of government agencies and lots of places seem to be focused on Apple. So what's going on there, and how much attention do you have to pay to government things and to some of these topics that the government regulates?
I think when you get a little larger, you get more attention, and it comes with the territory. If sort of some of the things that you named, I think we're doing incredible work in. So if you take the environment, we've been focused on the environment a long time. We were the first and still the only, I believe, consumer electronics company to eliminate toxins from all their products. We ship the most energy efficient products. We are running our data centers with 100% renewable energy. We own the largest solar farm of any non-utility in the United States in North Carolina, and the largest fuel cell. Probably thanks to companies that are in the room here. And so we've always cared deeply about leaving the environment better than we found it. And as a matter of fact, just to let you guys know first, Lisa Jackson is joining Apple. Lisa was running the EPA for the last 4 years, and she recently left the EPA. And so we're thrilled that she's coming.
What's her job?
And she's going to be coordinating a lot of this activity across the company and looking for ways to take what we're doing even to another level, from products to facilities and sort of all the things that...
All your environmental stuff.
And her title
Absolutely.
being?
I forgot what I called her, but she's going to be our environmental
Will she report to you?
She's going to report to me. And I like her a lot, and she's a chemical engineer by background, and so she'll fit right in with our culture. And she has 25 years of experience in working in environmental
But you don't feel like you're a target of governments in government agencies?
Again, I think when you're large, if somebody's looking at something you're going to be caught up in it in some way. And like this tax thing last week, there was, at least in my judgment, I didn't see anything that was very different about Apple versus others. In fact,
although perhaps people hold Apple to a higher standard in that regard.
I think that's true. And by the way, I love that because I do as well. We all hold ourselves to high standards. In terms of the ebook case, I think that's a bit different. The ebook case to me is bizarre. We've done nothing wrong there. And so we're taking a very principled position on this. We were asked to sign something that says we did do something, and we're not going to sign something that says we did something that we didn't do. And so we're going to fight. The EU thing that you referenced earlier is not an investigation. It's a questionnaire that I think got out. And so, but the sum of all of these, yes, there are many of those kind of things that go on all the time. They come with the territory. And what we like to do is on areas where we can make a difference, really make a difference, we're going to put energy into making a difference. And I think the environment is one of those. We talked about labor rights last year. That's clearly one of those areas. We're into product red in a big way because we think we can really make a difference there, and working with Bono and his team on eliminating AIDS transmission. I think this is an area where we can really make a difference. And,
so, go ahead.
And, and so things like that, we're going to push.
So let's talk things a little more mundane. All your money, your piles and piles of money. Obviously, David Einhorn and others were pushing for the use of it. Why doesn't Apple buy things with its money?
You mean acquisition?
Acquisitions. What are you doing with all that money?
Well, we do acquire. This year, this year, we were probably on a pace of acquiring maybe a company every 60 to 75 days or so. So we might get to 6 in a year. This fiscal year, again, starting in October, we've acquired already 9 companies. And
did you announce them all?
No, of course not. We only announce the ones we have to.
Isn't it customary to announce acquisitions?
Only the ones you have to. If it depends on the amount.
Why?
So these are small.
Why, Tim?
No, but these are small. These are small acquisitions.
Some of them were announced because they were not underneath the threshold. But no, we're always looking, and I would say, if anything, we will do more of that in the future.
Are you thinking of big acquisitions?
I wouldn't rule it out. We're not currently looking at a big one, but we're not opposed to doing that if it made sense. The keys for us are, would it help us make a great product? And, and would the culture fit in Apple?
Is there a big area you're missing in, social, for example? That's just my opinion.
Well, we do some things that are social. iMessage is social, Game Center is social.
Yeah, but you would not say you're a big social player.
We don't have a social network, but we partner with Facebook, we partner with Twitter. Both Facebook and Twitter are integrated into the OS in a really elegant way.
I meant something in more of a core way towards your business, in a more core social way.
It's not an area that I've never felt we had to own a social network. But yeah, we have looked at large acquisitions. It's not something we're afraid of doing, and if they work.
Can I ask you about control?
Sure.
There's a lot of terminology in the industry about open versus closed, and those are tricky words, actually, because they mean different things.
Yeah.
But there certainly is a level of control that you exercise, curation, one might say.
Sure.
Not just in your app store, but in other things. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So Facebook did this Facebook Home thing on Android, and it basically took over the Android phone. And if you were deep, it hasn't done very well as far as we can tell, but it's an interesting idea that Eric Schmidt was at one of our conferences recently and said, it's great, it's fine, didn't break any of our rules, but in effect, by taking over the lock screen, you maybe didn't get to somebody else's service that was down in the phone. My understanding is they came and talked to you about it, and people told me, well, Apple just wouldn't ever let anybody take over the lock screen. And let me just quickly make another example. You did come out with the first sort of modern smartphone. It changed the game. But your keyboard and your recognition, predictive typing and all that kind of stuff, in my opinion, has not kept pace with what has gone on the Android side and some other, and for instance, even the new BlackBerry keyboard, because they allow other people to make keyboard technology. They don't necessarily buy it. I guess RIM licensed it or something, but third parties can actually give you a choice, the user of a keyboard. And some of those people may know more about typing and predictive typing than some of the people in Cupertino. Not always, but somebody may. So have you given any thought to a little bit less control?
Yeah, of course. On the general topic of opening up APIs, which
that's right,
where you're focused on, I think you'll see us open up more in the future, but not to the degree that we put the customer at risk of having a bad experience. And so there's always a fine line to walk there, or maybe not so fine in some cases. We think that the customer pays us to make certain choices on their behalf. Instead of going in and, I've seen some settings on these phones where so that you're deep into the bowels of the thing, choosing this and that and the other and the other and the other. I don't think that's what most customers want. Do some want it? Yes, of course. But is that a mainstream customer want? I don't think so. But will we open up more? Yes. And,
okay. So more features of the, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
We are always.
But there may be more features that will be third-party companies can offer solutions for on the phone?
So would you let the bobbleheads onto your screen just run crazy? The Facebook bobbleheads?
Right now, we've both companies worked on integrating into the OS, and the feedback that I'm getting from customers is they really like that. That doesn't mean that's an endpoint. I think there's always more that companies can do together. I'm not sure that's one, but I think the relationship between the companies are good, and we'll come up with more and more things to do together.
Okay.
Great.
Well, thanks. We're going to do some Q&A.
About 15, is it 15?
10, I think it is, yeah. It's not going to go on all night, so choose your questions carefully and try to be, succinct. Thank you. Right there. Can you identify yourself?
Hi, Tim. My name is Fahad Khan. I'm the founder of OnePublic. My question is the serious version of the question former Google guy asked you last year on advertising. Facebook, in less than 1 year, has become the #1 mobile advertising revenue generator, thanks to the iOS integration, app install ads, and of course, that means your blessings. So how important is mobile advertising business going forward for Apple?
We got into mobile advertising because we wanted developers to make more money. That was our sole motivation. It wasn't about Apple making money. And so from that point of view, it's still important. That hasn't gone away. We want developers to do well. We want them to flourish. Just to give you some numbers here, in March, if you looked at payments, developer payments, and so this is paying for the app, not the advertising, but just paying, iOS developers were drawing 3 times more than they were drawing on Android. And so this is something that's important for us. We want a thriving developer community. And so to the degree that we can contribute to that by doing some things in advertising, then I'm very interested in doing that. If we ever concluded we couldn't do that, then it would become less interesting.
Would you call it core or not core? Last year you said it wasn't one of the...
Today, it's not large enough to be core. It's clearly not large enough to be core.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, Steve Wildstrom, Tech Pinions.
Hi, Steve.
Google and Microsoft are both offering cloud services that are both more extensive in the services offered than iCloud, and perhaps more important, platform agnostic. You can get Microsoft SkyDrive on just about any platform. You can get the various Google services. Whereas iCloud, except for some very limited Windows support, is Apple only. Should Apple be embracing a broader audience with iCloud to recognizing the reality that people may have an iPhone, an Android tablet, a Windows PC?
Let me try to answer it one step broader than what you ask it, so I'm not answering an iCloud specific one.
I think that was an iCloud specific question.
I know.
Okay.
To a general question of
figured that out.
Would Apple port an app from iOS, an Apple-owned app from iOS to Android in any case? It's not. We have no religious issue with doing that. If we thought it made sense for us to do that, we would do that. And so you could take that same philosophy and apply it to virtually everything we do. If it made sense to do it, we would do it. There's not a religious issue with it.
Does it make sense to do it?
Does it make sense for iCloud or for any app?
Right, specifically for iCloud.
It doesn't today. Would it forever? I don't know.
Okay, thanks. Over there.
Hey, Tim, Dan Simon with CNN.
Where are you? Oh, okay, great.
Putting aside for a moment the incredible technology that Apple brings us, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to weigh in on the concern that sociologists and others have about the overuse of technology, especially when it comes to children. And when do you feel is the appropriate age for a parent to buy a child an iPhone?
I've seen kids do incredible things with iPhone and iPad from a learning point of view. As with any tool that a kid has that's that age, parenting is key. And so what I like to see is I like kids very young learning and having a very curated experience by their parent. And I think that's great. You obviously have to monitor the time they're spending on it and all the rest of the things, all the good things that parents do. But I don't think in and of itself it's bad. I've seen too many great things happen to think that.
It's the parenting. He's talking about me and my child spending $3,000 in 15 minutes on iTunes. Go ahead.
Rolf?
True story.
Rolf Winkler from the Wall Street Journal. You talk a lot about great products, and increasingly the best mobile products are almost defined by the services that are on them. And in services, this kind of follows on the iCloud question. Google seems to be running circles around you guys with search, Google Maps. Google Now is pretty nifty. Chrome and Facebook in terms of usage, that blows everyone out of the water. And Apple still just has iTunes. So I guess my question is, for folks who maybe have an iPhone 4 or 4S or ready to upgrade, what kind of services can you tell us may be coming from Apple to stay with the iPhone? I know you won't say anything specific, but maybe you can, payments, something that...
Let me give you some different way to look at what you're saying a bit, or the way I look at it is, I think iMessage is an interesting service that...
WhatsApp runs circles around it.
We deliver 2 billion per day.
They're cross-platform.
iTunes is delivering incredible content from movies to apps to songs to TV shows to podcast it's incredible. I mean, it's the mother of all banks of content, and those stores work just, like a train. It's FaceTime, used tremendously. I get notes from customers that FaceTime changes their lives because they're able to connect with people they couldn't connect with before. And so I'd view it very differently than what you've presented it. However, we are making tons of investments in services, and I don't want to announce something today, but it's an area that we're really focused on. We believe that the core of Apple is to have great hardware, great software, great services, and find the magic where they meet. And so services is a very key element of that.
Did you make a bid for Waze?
We did not.
Okay.
No.
Just asking.
Hi, Dan Benton, Andor Capital. I've followed Apple as a sell-side and buy-side investor for almost 30 years. And my question, Tim, is why won't you let us dream? The guys at Google are presenting a world right now of gigabit fiber and weather balloons that do wireless and Google Glass, which they managed to get 10,000 people to spend $1,500 to alpha test for them. All of Kara and Walt's early questions were about giving us a view of the future. If you don't give me a view of the future, I'm going to think about Mike Spindler, and I'm going to think about Gil Amelio and closed systems. Why won't you give us a glimpse of the future as Apple sees it?
We always, from at least the last 15 years, we've done the same thing. We release products when they're ready. And we believe very much in the element of surprise. And we think customers love surprises. So I have no plan on changing that.
You could announce the time machine, just quietly. You could do it on All Things D. Reportedly, according to sources close to the situation.
Thanks. Hi, Tim. Crawford Delpret with IDC. Question for you. With Microsoft and Nokia getting together, Microsoft now has access to Navtech and a mapping platform. Google obviously has maps. Can you just talk about, in a world of location and commerce and kind of what's happening with Google Glass, as an asset, where does mapping sit kind of in your priority?
I think it's very important. And that's one reason why we're investing as much in it as we are. Mapping is complex. And not just the underlying data of the map, but things like points of interest and the other pieces around it. And so we have an enormous investment going into maps. If you've been following our progress, you've seen us make many, many improvements over the last several months, including a very significant change in Japan, as an example, just last month. So we think location is very important.
It's our fault that we didn't ask you about it.
Yeah.
I won't take this time away from you, but is Apple Maps fixed to your satisfaction?
Is it fixed? It's greatly improved.
Good? Keep talking about you ship products when they're ready, you ship great products. Mm-hmm. Clearly that was...
We screwed up there.
Okay, so where do you stand now on Apple Maps?
Greatly improved, but not there yet. We have more to do, and we're putting a lot of bright people on it.
Okay. I guess back over here.
Terry.
Yeah. Hi, Tim. Terry Kawaja, Luma Partners. So my question builds on the earlier Q&A regarding the integration of hardware, software, services. Many of the tech giants have combined those plus more, commerce and media in some cases. Arguably, Apple could have a huge opportunity in media. How do you see media as critical to your strategy going forward? And if so, how would you rationalize your sort of owned media approach versus what Mary Meeker would call the world we're moving to, which is an asset-light sort of approach where people are streaming or renting assets?
Are you asking if we need to own content? Is that... sort of where you're...
Own or rent on a proprietary basis, like what Amazon is doing.
He wants to know if you're in the Hulu game here. Are you?
In the Hulu game?
In the Hulu buying of Hulu game. Sort of.
I've never felt we needed to own content. We need access to great content. And so if you look today at the content that we offer our customers, we have 35 million songs. We have 200,000 plus TV shows. We have 60,000 movies. It's an incredible, incredible library. And so as long as that's available, I don't think we have to own it. You know, we don't have the skill to produce and direct.
But
That's not who we
do you
are.
assume the customers want to download and own it, which was the original premise? Or maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but I think you were also asking about the customers' view of it. Or did they just want access to it so they can stream
Well,
it?
iTunes is still growing. And, but there's some alternate services that are also growing. And so I think what you're seeing is that you have customers that want both. And
Are you going to give them both?
that I won't answer, but iTunes itself is still growing well.
Okay. Eli.
Hi, this is Neil Patel from The Verge. You've been involved in patent litigation on Android for several years now. And as far as I can tell, it hasn't really accomplished you anything, right? Another $1 billion from Samsung doesn't materially affect your business. I think a lot of people would say that you actually validated Samsung as your great competitor by suing them so vociferously. And your answer is always, you just want your competitors to make their own stuff. And I think if you look at the competitive landscape, Samsung is now completely differentiated from you. In fact, they can't seem to stop inventing things that people don't want or need. When does this end for you? What is the end game of this patent? What do you want from them to stop the way that you got something from HTC to settle?
The pluses in what's occurred, not just pluses for Apple, but for the broader industry, is that I think that we've run the standards essential issue largely to ground. There were several companies out there that were trying to get injunctions for standards essential IP, which was never the intention of it.
Are you saying that you filed all these lawsuits to run the standards essential issue to ground? I mean, it seemed like you wanted to block their phones from the market, and that never happened for you.
I'm saying it's a byproduct of what's occurred. This is when they sued us. This is Google suing us and Samsung suing us with standards essential patents, trying to get injunctions on our products. And I think largely the world has said, this isn't right, this is an abuse. And so I think that's a big plus, not just for Apple, but for everyone that competes in the smartphone space.
But you sued Samsung first, and you just added the S4 to the case. I mean, I'm just wondering what it is you want from them, what concession it would take for these lawsuits to end from Apple's perspective.
Well, I'm not negotiating it this evening. But generally, I don't like them any more than I did last year. But I don't want copying. It's a values thing. This is about values at the end of the day.
All right, the question time is up, and I'm going to let one more in because I interrupted what would have been the time for a question. So,
thanks, Walt. Hey, Tim. John Ford from CNBC. I had a question about iOS software. On the Mac, you guys had iLife, and it seems like a lot of the goal of that was to differentiate, maybe bring completely new types of applications to the Mac platform to show how it's different from Windows. On iOS right now, you do have Maps, iMessage, FaceTime, but not a lot of things that are completely different from what you can get on other phone platforms. Is it important to do something like iLife for iOS, or is it just a completely different platform and it doesn't apply?
Well, iLife is actually on iOS.
I know, but is there something mobile specific or iOS specific, not just derivative from the Mac?
what we're seeing on iPad in terms of what our contributions are, productivity has been very key because there was some view at the front end of the shipping the first tablet that a tablet would be a consumption-only device. And so we wanted to prove to people it could be a content creation device as well. And part of that content is work, and part of it is play. And so our contribution at that point in time was getting iWork on there. And as it turns out, Pages, which is a portion of iWork, is the most popular app on iPad of all time.
Paid app, right?
Paid app, yeah, that's right. We also do GarageBand, and this is incredible for musicians. It's a niche in some ways, but a very important one because it gets at the creative spirit that makes Apple. iMovie is like this as well in terms of making movies, editing movies, and sharing those with friends. And so we've tried to put our balance on content creation because at the beginning we were very worried that people would only see the tablet as a consumption device. And I have to say, I think that's worked well. I see people creating things all the time there. Do we need to do more? Yes, always. Always we need to do more. And so you'll continue to see some cool things there. But largely, I think our contributions will be most in the creation space.
Well, thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much.